When I spoke to the fact of the absence of citizenship just now, I spoke using abstracts to explain. I'm very happy that your follow-up question allows me the opportunity to flesh it out in some details. If Sowore were to be a citizen, no jurist would have Sowore under any sort of judicial restraint. But Sowore is not a citizen. Sowore is a member of the Nigerian state, held by virtue of the 1999 Decree 24, which is essentially a charter of slavery. One of the first charges against Sowore was terrorism. This man was in the custody of the Nigerian secret services for months on end. He's a married man with children. How do you possibly find the legal basis to justify keeping that man virtually imprisoned in a place? There is no, it's difficult to accept that Sowore is so dangerous that the court cannot even find the grace to give him liberal bail terms, assuming that it cannot throw out the disgusting, useless crap that is called a charge sheet. Let me step aside for a second and call your attention to something. The same government that is so vehement in its pursuit of Omoyele Sowore refers to trained bombers as vandals. It took years of serious lobbying and pressure before the same government will brand terrorists. The same government that is constantly pardoning Boko Haram murderers, people who have blood on their hands. Ndume was clear about that. People who have violated minors, people who have engaged in trading human beings, who have held people for ransom, murderers, mass murderers. The Nigerian state is rehabilitating them. We have the most successful de-radicalization program in the entire wide world. But that same state has none of these people subjected to the same treatment to which it has subjected Omoyele Sowore. It tells you something. The Nigerian state treats those who demand citizenship rights as terrorists. But those who are the real terrorists are mollycoddled because they are children of the system, consequences of their actions and inactions. I have deliberately separated the treatment of Omoyele Sowore and Nnamdi Kanu. Omoyele Sowore has not asked for the breakup of Nigeria. He has merely contributed ideas to how Nigeria can be made a better place. Nnamdi Kanu, we've already said that Nigerians are not citizens. And he was very correct, and he speaks for the Igbo street. The streets of Ala Igbo resonates with his voice because he speaks for the dispossessed and the disinherited. He speaks for a generation who have been systematically marginalized, disenfranchised, made the subject of inequities and the systemic evils of the Nigerian state. He speaks for those who do not have voices, who have had their voices taken from them. He speaks in a language that I don't like or understand, but he speaks the truth. You cannot beat a child and then demand that the child must not cry. If there wasn't validity, if there isn't, I should say, if there aren't validities to the demands of Nnamdi Kanu or his grievances, there will be no currency to his words. But he speaks clearly, speaking the mind and the grievances and the pains of the people. To ignore what he is saying will be stupid. He is the one who has embraced the use of the language that the Nigerian state understands. But he is not the only person who is aggrieved in Nala Igbo. Killing Nnamdi Kanu today, there are 1,000 waiting to take his place. Because the reality is that he is not speaking to his personal pain. He is speaking to the pains of a people. When you have now driven a man to the point of impotence, where he realizes that talking to you makes no difference, changes nothing, and he has rightly or wrongly, I'm not going to judge him, picked up arms against the system or encouraged the use of arms against the system. If such a system is interested in peace, it deals with the root of the grievance and then it finds a peace. When people go to war, wars are never settled without peace talks. Peace talks are different from dictations. The Nigerian state has been at war within the Igbo, and it has not stopped since 1966. Not that it has ever stopped being at war with every other part of Nigeria, but Ndi Igbo has been more or less like the testing ground for all of the evils of the Nigerian state. If it does not find the way to make peace based on justice with Ndi Igbo, the persecution of a man who merely speaks and acts on behalf of a people merely guarantees his martyrdom, and it merely ensures the end of this system. Now, if we have said that the only validity that the Nigerian state has in holding on to Mazi is a function of the fact that he has repudiated the legitimacy of the Nigerian state, and as I do the same as well, the Nigerian state is illegitimate. It is essentially, as I have said, a slave plantation. How does it explain that in the same country there are so many people who are busy strolling around with AK-49, AK-47s, M16, all kind of arms, enabled, mollycoddled by the Nigerian state? Why is it possible that a Sheikh Gumi can be speaking on behalf of the terrorists, but it is impossible for Buhari's ears, which ears the Gumi persuasions, not to hear what Ohanes and Igbo have been asking of him? Free the man, engage in fruitful deliberations. If the man has adopted and picked up arms against the state, it's because the state itself has never taken his leg off his neck. I keep remembering, and I've repeated this today, I believe it was General Philip F. Young, when he was delivering the instrument of surrender. I believe he said to, was it Obasanjo or Gowon? I can't remember who now. He said, I believe it was Obasanjo actually. He said, treat these people well, or their children will rebel against you. He wasn't a prophet. He was merely a man who knew the consequences of injustice. The first condition of the human spirit is a constant yearning and quest for justice. If you do not treat a people with justice, you're demanding that they must self-abnegate and accept a state of slavery for you to have peace. Nigeria will not have peace until there is justice available to all and sundry. The next question you asked was, how did we get here? Simple. January 15, 1966, a group of young majors came to the conclusion that the Nigerian state had failed and that it required urgent restructuring. And without recourse to democratic principles, they decided that Nigeria required a revolution, rightly, and I'll come to that point of explanation later. And the revolution for them was interpreted through the use of arms. These were soldiers, young men, some of them unmarried, as young as 27 or less in some cases. Hotheads. So they set out from Kaduna, I believe Abeokuta, but the coup failed. It didn't fail until they had decapitated the political leadership, at least the titular political leadership of northern Nigeria. The premier of northern Nigeria was killed, the Sardauna of Sokoto, Ahmadu Bello. The prime minister of Nigeria, Tafawa Balewa, was also killed. This coup was quickly branded an Igbo coup. And there was what was called a counter coup, or shall I say a revenge killing, in July 1966. This set off a pogrom, another word for genocide, people being murdered en masse in northern Nigeria, people of southern origin, but principally the Igbos. And that event led to the wars that we euphemistically call the Civil War. There was nothing civil about it. Scores died, millions of young children starved. Kwashoko became a word in Nigerian lexicon. Okporoko, the stockfish of today that is a delicacy, was essentially a Red Cross handout to those in serious need of protein. But have we learned? We've not learned anything. After the Civil War, the military came. And everything that has been done since 1966 to run away from the foundation of Nigeria, which is the 1963 Constitution, everything that has been done have merely taken us back each time. Because it is not by accident that those who sat at the negotiating tables between 1953, when federalism was introduced into Nigeria, at the urgings of Obafemi Awolowo, who had led the West and all of Nigeria's minority to the Lancaster House Conference, and persuaded Ahmadu Bello and Azikiwe that federalism is the only way forward for a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious country like ours. From 1953, series of negotiations and trial and error led to the agreement that governed Nigeria at independence in 1960. Some people elected not to be part of that. Northern Cameroon left and became part of Cameroon. That, I think, is the root of what you call the Ambazonian problem in Cameroon today. But the rest of Nigeria stayed and found a country called Nigeria. Western Nigeria could have left just as Cameroon left and Northern Cameroon left. Eastern Nigeria might have left just like Northern Cameroon left. And Northern Nigeria could certainly have left, and indeed, Ahmadu Bello was the first person to demand secession from Nigeria. But nobody left beyond Northern Cameroon. But without leaving, they had negotiations. Extensive negotiations. There was the Willings Commission of Inquiry. They negotiated back and forth. Ahmadu Bello, for instance, he had Sheikh Gumi, the father of the current one, demanding full Sharia in northern Nigeria. But he understood the need to keep the north one without the specter of Sharia. So, instead of adopting full Sharia as he was being urged by Sheikh Gumi, who was at that time the Grand Qadi of northern Nigeria, instead of that, he adopted the penal code fashioned after the Pakistani system of justice. So he codified part of the Sharia that was not repugnant to natural justice. And whilst northern Nigeria had the penal code, southern Nigeria had the criminal code. There were differences on account of the religious balance that had to be made in northern Nigeria. Sharia was not allowed to rule in criminal jurisprudence. It was restricted to only those that might be codified under the penal code, and in the area of civil relationship, marriage, intestacy, succession, some measure of property rights, but it was never extended to cover the amputation of the likes of Jangebe. When you are cutting the hand of a man for stealing a goat, but you are turbaning the governor who just turbaned himself with money. Gandola. If anybody has ever qualified for the Isba in Kano, it's Gandola, but nobody is touching it. But I digress. The point is this. The moment we walked away from an agreement that took so long to find, by 1960, that agreement was what was known as the Independence Constitution. It had fundamentals. Nigeria was a federation of 3 regions. Each region had significant control and autonomy over its own affairs. Between 1960 and 1962, there was further constitutional growth and development. The Nigerian people decided, especially in the western part of Nigeria, that there was the need for an additional region. And that was what led to the creation of the Midwest region. The Midwestern region came out of the Western region, but it wasn't decreed into existence. It came out of further agreements and negotiation. Constitutionally, there was a survey, economic survey, to be sure that that parcel that was going to come out of Western Nigeria would be economically viable and it would not rely on grants from the federal government for its sustenance. A motion was passed in the Western Regional House of Assembly by a 2/3 majority, which meant that Action Group had to work with other parties. That same motion, in the form of a plebiscite, went before the people of the place that was to become the Midwestern region. It passed. And then a bill went before the Federal House of Representatives in Lagos. It passed. It was only after that that a 4th region was created. That was how rigorous those agreements were. Everybody were consulted. The people's representatives were involved. The people were involved in the decision as to how they were to be governed. 1966 came with a coup. That was where we missed the road. So if you have asked me, how did we get here? We got here because the 1966 coup, the January one, offered the excuse for the theft of a country. The second coup was essentially a state hijack. And the culmination of that state hijack is the 1999 Constitution. Let nobody fool anyone about that. The 1999 Constitution is essentially the assertion of hegemonic power, saying clearly, we hold the veto over this space. But that hegemony is not tribal. any longer. It might be spearheaded and pushed and led by an hegemony located within a cultural construct, but it has gone national. Every member of the Nigerian ruling class is a card-carrying member of the feudal hegemony that rules this country. That feudal hegemony is legitimized by the 1999 Constitution. Any Nigerian that is tired of where we are, who has wondered how we got to where we are, should understand that the root of our problems are to be found encapsulated in that fraudulent document that says we the people, when the will of the Nigerian people is clearly uninvolved. That was where we went wrong. That is how we got here.